Now, all right. If you want to follow along in Canvas, you can. If you want to stay turned around looking at me and just looking at the screens, that's fine as well. This is going to be a fairly speedy class. It is my last class of the week, probably the last class of the week for a lot of you guys as well. So we're going to be here till 6:30 or so, but we won't be here until 7 tonight. Starting next week, we'll probably be here the full 3 hours for sure. When you first log on to Canvas, everybody's been into Canvas, right? This is not your absolute first class here at Butler Community College, hopefully, because you might get the wrong impression if I'm your first class. I'm a little unorthodox. I'm not quite like most of the other instructors here. So my name is John Simpson. I've been teaching here at Butler for 14 years now. Had a completely different life before I started taking classes and became a teacher, so I will attest to the power of education. Getting an education, it doesn't really matter what that education is in, but just getting some sort of education will change your life. So hello and welcome to Stop Motion Animation 1. This class is a nice bridge between the old, so like I said, a lot of traditional type arts. We do a lot of drawing, we do a lot of paper craft, we do a lot of sculpting, we do a lot of making things out of construction paper and cardboard and things like that. Occasionally I will let you paint. It just depends on how unruly you guys are. Okay, I mean, if you act like adults, I'll let you play with the adult toys. And that doesn't sound right, but you should practice this. I did this class this morning, you wouldn't know it, but I will let you create. So, as far as contact information, my office is located 2 doors down the hall here. If the door is open, feel free to stop by. Even if it's not open, if I'm in there, feel free to knock on the door. All right. A lot of students seem to think office hours means that we're in there working, and we are, but a big part of our job is to be here for you as students. So don't hesitate to knock on the door. If you need to contact me, the best way to do it is through the inbox in Canvas. I do have a Butler email address, but I get an awful lot of institutional emails every day. And so your email will probably get pushed down to the second or third page. I may not respond for a couple of days. If you send me something through Canvas, chances are my phone is going to ding when it happens, and I will respond right then and there. Okay? Not always. Weekends are kind of it takes me a little bit longer, but during the week, I will get back to you just ASAP if you go through the inbox. This course begins today and ends on the 12th of December. That gives us less than 4 months together. That is not a very long time, but I'm going to cram as much information into those 3 months and 3 weeks that I possibly can for you. Now again, this stop motion course will enable you to build stop motion animations using various industry standard techniques. How many here want to be an animator? How many here have ever thought about being an animator? Good, awesome, that's higher than average. Generally 1 or 2 kids raise their hands. This class, even if you're not that into animation, it's going to teach you lots of skills that transfer to other things, like working with other people. Okay. In the real world, you work in groups, whether you want to or not. In this class, you work in groups. It will teach you to have an awful lot of patience, because stop motion animation is tedious and it takes time, but the end result is generally worth it. It will teach you to fight for your ideas. It will teach you how to compromise and still end up with a decent project. All right, we're not going to worry about that too much. Required materials. I don't really require that you have anything except for you coming to class and doing your absolute best for me. There is no book. I bought a couple of books in the past, and they're good as far as if you want to learn the history of stop motion. And that's a worthwhile subject, but we're here to learn how to make stop motion animation. We are here to learn how to edit the videos and produce them. And then, like I said, there's other things as well, such as working in groups and fighting for your ideas and knowing when to compromise and when not to. There's lots of skills that you're going to pick up in here that you don't even realize yet. So, as far as supplemental materials, you will need some sort of portable media. All right, I'd recommend 1 gigabyte minimum. Hard drives are good. flash drives are okay. Some sort of online cloud storage. Through Microsoft, you have access to OneDrive, so that's not something you need to pay for, but through our Microsoft accounts that we give you. Hey there.
Hey,
What's your name real quick?
Christy.
Thank you.
That?
All right, awesome. There you are. Okay, awesome. If you have a Gmail account, you have access to Google Drive as well. So again, not something you really need to pay for. You will need access to the Adobe Suite. Okay, now in this room, you can create an Adobe account. You don't have to pay anything for it, and you can access the software in our labs, but only in our labs. If you're going to work in this field, you may as well go ahead and get used to the idea that you're going to pay Adobe $20 to $30 a month for the rest of your life. Okay, that's how it works now. Used to be you bought the software, you got a copy of it, it was yours, you actually physical copy. They now send out cease and desist letters to people saying you can no longer use your old versions of Photoshop or your old version of Illustrator. Okay, the whole thing is subscription based now. Think of it as an investment in your future. If you can't get it though, we do have it in 3 different labs in this building. So there are 60 places that you could come work at any given time. Even if we don't have open labs during a certain time period, come find me. If I'm in the building, I will let you into the room. And then we don't need Open Broadcaster for this particular class. All right, let's jump over to the syllabus. Now this is kind of our contract with each other. This is going to lay out some of the expectations I have for you, and it's going to inform you of some of what you can expect from me. We will meet every week at this time from 4 to 7 p.m. Again, there's my contact information. If you absolutely need to email me, my email address is on there. I will be slower in responding. If you call my office and I happen to be in there, I will answer the phone. Again, there are no required materials. The intention of this class is for you to be able to articulate some concepts used in stop motion animation and to create stop motion animations. Again, the skill set that you pick up here is directly transferable. It doesn't matter what you're going into. You're going to learn some patience. You're going to learn how to work with others. You're going to learn how to conceptualize an idea. You're going to learn how to hopefully draw. How many consider yourselves to be like artists and draw? Okay, if you don't draw, I highly recommend you start drawing. Drawing is a skill that anybody can learn. Used to be everybody learned it. One second. What's up? Oh, thanks for 2020, by the way. I don't know who pushed it, but it's out, so.
I'll come back for the necklace there.
Okay. Hopefully I can remember this guys. Website, yeah, Control Paint. This is exactly the site I wanted. If you have not heard of this, it's called Control Paint. This gentleman has all kinds of tutorials on drawing and painting and all kinds of good stuff. And he's got a really extensive free library. This is where I learned to draw, is off of this guy. Highly recommend you check it out. Because you don't have to be able to draw, but being able to draw is going to make you a better overall artist. It's kind of like sculpting. How many of you have played with Play-Doh in the last year? Okay, we're going to do some clay work next week. Being able to hold something in your hand and form it into a shape is a wonderful skill. It makes you a better artist overall. Hi there. What's your name?
Samuel Brazil.
Awesome. Grab a seat. If there's no seats around the outside, you're going to have to sit in the middle. It's not too bad. None of those computers work, so I'd go ahead and grab one in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah. You're not going to be doing anything on the computer anyway, so not today. All right, Samuel. Are you sure you're in this class? Stop motion animation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did, I think Daryl Runyon talk to you?
We'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't sweat it. Okay. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'm gonna go back to reading. It'll come back to me. The learning pack statement. I'm sure you guys have heard this in your other classes, but this is our core ideology here at Butler. PACT stands for Personal Development Skills. Here you are in college. For some of you, this might be the first time you've stepped into a classroom. In 2 years, 3 years, when you graduate from Butler, you will not be the same person that you are today. You are going to grow in many, many ways during your time here at Butler. Analytical thinking skills. None of your instructors should give you the answer. They should gently nudge you until you find the right answer. They'll push you in the direction you want to go. And that's what I try to do. You will ask me, how would we make a character fly or something like that during an animation, and we'll sit down and we'll have a little dialogue about that. I won't tell you exactly what I would do, but I will kind of gently, hopefully, get you to an answer that works for you. When it comes to communication, animation is fantastic. Okay? A picture is worth 1,000 words, and animation is worth 1,000,000 words. You can convey all kinds of ideas, whether they be technical, how does the internal combustion engine work, or you can tell a fantastic story like Coraline with animation. And then finally, the technological skills. A lot of our classes do boil down to, in the beginning, push this button and this thing will happen. In the beginning, that's a great way to learn how software works. After a while, you quit thinking about, I have to push this button, then this thing will happen. And then the creativity comes into it. But we do a lot of focus on technological skills as well. If we go down a little farther on the grading components, these are the things that we are going to do. Each one of them is worth about 10% of your overall grade, except for your final project, and it is worth 30% of your grade. The first 4 are going to be individual projects. These are all group projects. Now let me explain how group projects work in this class. You will work together as a group. Each one of you will submit your own version of the animation. You will be graded on what you submit. So if you don't work well with your group, or you don't hold up your end of the bargain, that will be reflected on your grade, not the rest of the group. You are reliant on one another to get a good grade. But just because if somebody doesn't do their part, they're not going to get the A that you got because you did a good job. Does that make sense? Okay. Below that, we have our class schedule. I will do my best to stick to this as much as possible, but if for some reason we need to push some stuff around, I have left buffer room at the end of the semester. If you miss class, this is where you need to go. You need to find what the date was. Okay, today was 9/12. We did the Storyboarding 101 discussion. I'm going to go find the module that says Storyboarding 101, and I'm going to read that. And if I have any questions, then I will ask Mr. Simpson, what do I need to do for this assignment? Please do not email me after missing class and say, did we do anything last week? Okay, because I tend to get kind of snarky, and I will be like, no, we didn't do anything. I sent everybody home. And you guys know that's not true. You know we're going to do stuff every week. Institutional policies. It's important that you come to class. It's important that you be on time. I sent out the email at the beginning, the 5 things to do. Show up early, stay late, have a plan, do your best, and talk to your instructors. Do those 5 things, you will not fail. Stay on top of things, have a plan, sit down every week. I have these 3 classes. I have these assignments due this week. Make a list. If you come in my office, you will see that I have a list every week that lists what the classes are, what the topic is. It hangs right above my desk. That way I know, man, I better get that prepped. Because I have to go in and talk to these kids for 2.5 hours about segments and polygons and vertices and things like that. So have a plan. Be prepared to come to class, though. It's important that you come in. If you have to miss, you have to miss. It's not a huge deal. If you miss like 3 classes overall, then we have to have a little talk in my office about your future in this class, because it's hard to pass when you miss 20% of the class. If you are in any online classes, you need to be especially disciplined. If you are not logging in on a regular basis, they will drop you from your online classes. At least here, if you don't do the homework, I will scowl at you, and that will hopefully motivate you to do the homework. If you're in an online class, you never see the instructor, so it's easy to blow things off. During my career as a student, I got 2 Ds in the entire time I was taking classes. Guess what? They were both online classes. I discovered real fast I am not disciplined enough to take an online class. I need my teacher to scowl at me and go, "Why didn't you do it?" So, and Ds, they take a long time to bring up. Fs, even more so. Academic integrity. I attended a couple of workshops this semester, or over the summer, put on by the English department and the math department. There's an amazing amount of tools out there that allow you guys to cheat in things like math and English and anything that uses a test bank, like from a book. Really hard to cheat in this class. Number 1, there's no tests. Number 2, there's not really that many like question type things. We're going to do some today, but not a lot. And number 3, 90% of the work you will do right here in front of me during class time. You will need to take some stuff home with you at some point. You may have to take your sets home and finish building them at home. You may not have time to finish them in class. But it's really hard to cheat in this class. But if you do cheat in any of your other classes, you can get kicked out of school, you can get kicked out of the class. All kinds of bad things can happen to you. And besides, think of your education like buying a new car. Would you go to a car dealership, put $2,000 down on a brand new car, and then call a cab to take you home? No, right? You're going to drive your brand new car home, right? Hopefully, at least. Education is the same thing. Just because you paid your tuition and you come to class, if you don't do the work or you have somebody else do the work for you, then you are only cheating yourself. And regardless of how good your little brother or your little sister is at a particular program, when you get hired on at that job, they're not going to let you bring that person with you. So, get your education, pay for it. We're going to go incomplete policy. If for some reason extenuating circumstances, and by extenuating circumstances, I mean you are deathly ill and in the hospital. Someone close to you is deathly ill and in the hospital. You are in jail. Those are the 3 big ones. We can give you what is called an incomplete. Now, an incomplete means that you will sign a contract saying, I will get Mr. Simpson all the work that he requires within 6 weeks of the end of the semester. If you do not follow through with that, then the incomplete becomes an F and it stays on your transcripts. This is not for I took too many classes and I can't get all of my work done. Okay? Simply plan ahead. Now, at the end, I'm going to give you like 4 or 5 weeks to work on your final project as a group. If you plan that out, that is plenty of time. Plenty of time for you to produce what I want you to produce. I will be showing examples throughout the semester of former student work, so we give you an idea of what I expect from you as we go into each project. Disability services. If for any reason you need a special accommodation, please contact the Disability Services office. Their number is right there. We will make any reasonable accommodation for you. So like if you need a note taker or if you have a service animal. Unfortunately, service animal does not extend to comfort animals. There's like if you are blind or you need that type of service animal. Harassment and violence policy. It is Butler's policy to Maintain a learning environment that is free from harassment or violence. Butler Community College prohibits any form of harassment or violence against an employee or student based on race, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, national origin, age, disability, or any other status protected by federal or state or local law. If you are being harassed, talk to your instructors. If you feel like it is your instructor that is harassing you, talk to the department head. Okay? We will put a stop to it. I've had issues in the past where students got overly infatuated with one of their teammates or something along those lines. Unfortunately, things tend to escalate, and it's not good for anybody. Social media policy. You are not allowed to take pictures in this classroom and post them on your social media page. You never know who the person is next to you. They might be trying to hide from an abusive spouse. They might have trouble with their parents. They might be on the run from the mob. Who knows? They might be in witness relocation, right? You never know who the person is next to you, so respect those people's privacy. Do not take pictures in the classroom and post them on your social media. The other thing I will say about social media is you should always think twice before you hit post. You might think it's funny and edgy now. In 10 years, it might be the difference between you getting that dream job that you've worked really hard to get. Case in point, the director of Guardians of the Galaxy. Okay, he's not going to be allowed to direct Part 3. And those are great movies, and he probably got paid an incredible amount of money to direct those movies. But he posted something that was trying to be edgy several years ago, and it came back to bite him. Now, you may not even think about it now, but in 10 or 15 years, one of you might decide to be a politician. And I guarantee you, everything you've ever posted will be drug up then. So be careful what you throw out there. It never goes away. Somebody screenshots it. Somebody's gonna be able to throw it back in your face. Additionally, you just, again, never know who's friends with who. I've had students go onto their social media page and rant about my coworkers, or even rant about me once or twice. A friend of a friend of a friend happens to be my second cousin, and guess what? That showed up in my feed. So think before you do it, is all I'm saying. Non-discrimination, we do not discriminate in any way here at Butler Community College. If you feel like you're being discriminated against, come talk to a faculty member. Come talk to this lady right here. Her name is Sherry Kennard. She offices right here in the student union. She's a very, very helpful lady, and if you are having any type of problem at all, she is the one that you want to talk to. Now, I do need to mention that as an instructor, I am what is called a mandated reporter. So if you come to me and express to me that something illegal is being done to you, or something illegal is just happening, I have to report that to the police. Otherwise, I could lose my job. Now, we do have a faculty member on staff here who is a licensed therapist, and anything you say to her is confidential. So if you need somebody to talk to and you don't want them to have to go to the police, and I'm not trying to discourage you from talking to your faculty members, because that's why we're here, but just know that if something illegal is going on, I have to report it. Her name escapes me right now, but I know where her office is. She does not. She is a licensed therapist, and everything you say to her is confidential. Again, we are here to try to provide you with a safe learning environment and the best possible experience you can have at a community college. As far as instructor policies, I don't have many. One that is not necessarily listed here, but if I start to talk, I generally begin with clap if you can hear me. And so everybody that hears me goes like this. And if the person next to you claps, that's your sign to stop your conversation. Because whatever it is, it can wait until I'm done. But primarily attendance. Again, if you miss 3 classes, that would be 9 hours of instruction. That is 20% of the class. Therefore, we need to have a little talk in my office, and you need to guarantee me you will do better. Late or makeup assignments. Our class meets on Thursday. Your assignments will be due Wednesday night at midnight. You will have 1 week after that time to turn them in and still receive partial credit for them. After 1 week, that assignment will close, and I will not reopen them for you. Believe it or not, that's actually for you. Students who get behind on the first couple of assignments never get caught up. But if you miss an assignment and a week later you've got a big fat 0 sitting there, that's a great motivator. I've got to get this next assignment done. I've got to get it turned in. And, if you're at a job and you don't perform, what happens? You get fired, right? Hopefully you get fired. If you're a freelancer and you don't deliver when you say you're going to deliver, you don't eat. Kind of the same thing with a job, though, too. If you get fired, it makes it hard to eat, right? Makes it hard to keep the roof over your head. If you need to drop the class for whatever reason, please let me know, and then go online and drop yourself from the class. It can be a variety of things. Maybe this just isn't for you. Maybe you have a personal problem with me. Maybe it's just, you decided that you wanted to pursue other interests. A drop is always better than if you just stop coming. Because unfortunately, if you just stop coming, I may not notice. Okay? I may forget that you're in the class until it's too late, and then you get an F. So be proactive, and if you have to drop, shoot me a message and say this isn't for me, and then you can go online and remove yourself from the class. As far as phone policy goes, please do not use your phone in my classroom. If it rings, go take your call out in the hallway. Do not make a big deal about it. If you absolutely have to send that text, please do so from the hallway. Now, when I call breaks, that's different. If we go on break, you are more than welcome to whip your phone out. Do what you got to do. It doesn't say it here, but this extends to all electronic devices. I had a young man who thought it was appropriate, because there will be times, unfortunately, when you're working in a group of 4 or 5 people that you don't have anything to do. Okay? Act interested. Act interested in what your group is doing. But I had a young man who thought it was appropriate to whip out his Switch. And I wasn't too mad the first time. I'm like, hey, why don't you just put that away? That's not cool. And then I looked up not 10 minutes later, and he was doing it again. That time I got a little loud. He puts it away. The third time I look up, and this is about 20 minutes later, he's doing it again. And there were many expletives that came out of my mouth. The whole room got real quiet. And then me and him had to have a little talk out in the hallway about what is and is not appropriate in the classroom. And his defense was, well, I didn't have anything to do. And I'm like, then you should have asked your team leader. You should have asked me, hey, what could I be doing? At the very least, act interested in what your group is doing. Again, 3 hours a day, that's all, our 3 hours a week, that's all I get you for. And we have a lot to do, we have a lot to cover. And once you start to see what the students have produced in the past, you will understand why I need you to be here and be focused every single week. Headphones are not to be worn without permission. If we're working with audio, then you can have the headphones on. Otherwise, I want you listening. It's a group activity. And if you have headphones on, it's kind of hard to be part of the group. You ever go up to customer service sometimes? It's not so bad as it used to be, but you'd go up sometimes and the kids would have their headphones in. It's like, no, that is inappropriate. I love music. I know music's a big part of some of y'all's lives. It's a big part of my life. I love Spotify. I don't know how I existed before Spotify. It's like I love the radio too, but man, sometimes you're just in the mood for Tool or something they don't play on the radio. Spotify is there for you. If we are finished for the day, and there is something else that you need to work on, then by all means, ask me. I'll let you work on, if you got homework for Brian or homework for Daryl or something along those lines, but not during the bulk of the class, just towards the end. As far as departmental policies, computer lab security, these labs are locked. We are not required to open them, but if you come in and there is no open lab and I'm here, knock on my door. Okay, I will find somewhere for you to work. This software that you are expected to be able to learn is expensive, and it also requires pretty beefy computers to run most of it. I have a program I teach, 3ds Max. I teach 3D animation. Okay, that's a beast. You need a beast of a computer to run 3ds Max. Little more, got a little stronger requirements than, say, running Word or something like that. So if you can't run it at home, don't sweat it. But just make the commitment to come down here. I don't know if anybody told you, but when you take a class in college, if you take a 3-hour course, you should expect to have 2 to 3 hours worth of homework every week for that course. 3 hours in the classroom, 3 hours outside the classroom. Makes it kind of hard if you have to work, but it pays off, trust me. All right, I can attest to that. All right, computer lab issues. If you encounter a technical problem, please do not try to fix it. It upsets our information services department extremely when students get in there and start trying to fix our computers. Do not unplug anything from the back of these machines. Do not plug anything into the back of these machines. There are USB ports across the front. You are welcome to plug your stuff into there, which they're maybe going to end up doing away with that eventually as well. Computer lab use. If I'm in the building, and again, come talk to me. I'll find somewhere for you to work. Food and drink. With the construction, it's especially hot in these labs, and it's just going to stay that way until the construction is finished. It'll be amazing when it's done, but we have to suffer through the next couple semesters. So I don't mind if you bring a drink. I drink copious amounts of coffee. I drink lots of water as well. If you bring a pop or something, preferably something in a closed container, okay? That way if you knock it over, you don't get orange soda all over my keyboards. These rooms tend to get pretty nasty as it is, the machines. So as far as that goes, no cheese-based foods. Okay, no Flamin' Hot Cheetos, no Doritos, no anything like that, because your fingers are going to get nasty, and then you're going to touch my mice, and then the next person's going to come in there and go, I don't want to touch that. Okay. Sometimes students bring their laptops to work on, and I absolutely will not touch your laptop at all, period. Most of the time because they're gross, but not always. Sometimes it's just because if I touch that computer, guess what? Everything that goes wrong with it from that point forward is now somehow my fault. Now, but as far as food goes and things like that, nothing that smells, no McDonald's, no fast food, no chicken strips from the deli there, anything like that. Nothing that's going to stink up the lab. But if you got a candy bar, that's great. If you got some of Grandma's cookies out of the vending machine, that's fine. All right, so that is the syllabus in a nutshell. If you have questions about the course or when we're meeting or anything like that, your first step should be the syllabus, always. If this does not answer your question, or if you have more questions after looking at the syllabus, don't hesitate to send me a message. Okay. Boy. All right. So I'm going to jump over to modules real quick. We're going to go ahead and look at just a couple of things. If this is your first semester, I would recommend that you spend a little bit of time getting to know Canvas. And a good way to do that is to go through the introductory module. Canvas is really simple. Once you get the hang of it, it's a great way for us to keep track of the assignments and everything else. And if you want to know a little bit more about me, you can click on Meet Your Instructor, and there's a little bio about me. And the best picture I've ever had taken, and it was taken by a student. Imagine that. If for some reason you don't like the tools that I provide, such as the scissors and the glue and stuff like that, here is a list of some of the things that you could possibly buy and bring to class if you want. Otherwise, I will provide all of this stuff for you. All right. Like I said, we do a lot of hands-on type stuff. So if you haven't held scissors for a while, you might go home and practice cutting some paper. My first semester teaching this class, I had high school kids. It was primarily high school kids. I think I had like 15 of them that semester. And at one point, I'm just like, put the Xbox controller down and pick up some scissors, guys. You have to have that manual dexterity. It's great that you can do this, but they would look at the scissors and go, what do I do with them? I'm like, no. But I enjoy this side of things a lot. I'm very technical as well, but I really do enjoy making stuff out of paper, making trees out of paper and things like that. Here are some stop motion animation links. I'm going to go ahead and pass out these real quick, and we're going to start a couple of things. Now, when we watch Coraline, that's what this piece of paper that you're going to have is for. I want you to take notes as we watch Coraline. I'm going to go over this Hero's Journey real quick. Then we're going to watch some Looney Tunes, and they're going to talk about the Hero's Journey. And then we're going to watch a YouTube video, and he's going to talk about the Hero's Journey. And that way, when we watch Coraline, you'll be kind of familiar with what is called the Hero's Journey. Now, the Hero's Journey was developed by a gentleman by the name of Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell is a very scholarly gentleman who worked for Ivy League schools, and his version of the Hero's Journey is about 2,500 pages long. That's why we're going to do the Looney Tunes version of the Hero's Journey. It's a little easier to digest. But basically, the Hero's Journey is a framework that he noticed applies to all kinds of stories, whether those stories be ancient Greek myths, all the way back to Gilgamesh, which is like the first story ever, all the way up through, hey, do we have just enough? Holy shit, that worked out really well. Good deal. All the way up to the Marvel movies. Comic books use the Hero's Journey all the time. Star Wars, The Matrix, just about any movie that you could say, we could sit down and we could apply this to. Now, I'm going to go through these kind of quick, and I'm going to use you guys as the hero. You didn't know that. You're the hero of your own story. And we are all the heroes of our own story. So, introduction to the everyday world. That's where most good stories start. What's your ordinary world? You're a college student. You probably work. You probably hang out with your friends. You spend money to keep your car running. You come to class. That's your ordinary world. Or maybe you're just a high school kid. The call to adventure. How many watch Rick and Morty? I love Rick and Morty. I think it's a brilliant show. If you don't watch it, you should really watch it. There's one where they're in Rick's workshop and the phone starts ringing. And Rick says, I am not going to answer a literal call to adventure. Okay, the call to adventure is some sort of catalyst that forces our hero to do what needs to be done. That could be something as simple as you see a really cute boy across the hall. That could be a call to adventure. Hey, how you doing? It could be something as bad as you came home and your entire family's been murdered. Okay, such as The Punisher. Or it could be your parents are like, well, you're done with high school. It's time to get a job or it's time to go to college. That's the option I gave my daughter. She's like, I'll go to school, Dad. Okay, so that's your call to adventure. Now, oftentimes the hero will refuse the call. You see that cute girl across the hall and you're like, oh man, she is way out of my league. There's no way I can talk to her. Or, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I can't do it. Oftentimes in video games, we will skip the refusal because that's kind of a short game, right? So I'm just going to stay home and play video games. But, Spider-Man, Think of anybody that you want, any hero of any story, and generally they will refuse the call. Not always, though. The meeting with the mentor. If our hero is to accomplish what they need to accomplish, then they're going to need allies. And the mentor comes in many forms. How many have seen Coraline? Okay. I apply the role of the mentor to the cat. You know, who would think of a cat as being a mentor? But Neil Gaiman, right? Yeah. It is Gaiman, right? Yeah. For the longest time, I thought Roald Dahl wrote that. He did not write that. Neil Gaiman wrote Coraline. Anyway, Star Wars. Who is the mentor in Star Wars?
Which episode?
The original trilogy.
Yoda?
You got Yoda, you got Obi-Wan, you've got Han Solo to a lesser degree, you know. But all of these people act as heroes and mentors, mentors to our hero, who is Luke Skywalker. When Lucas originally pitched that idea, it started off with Luke Skywalker was already Space Ninja, right at the very beginning of the Star Wars movies. Nobody wanted to see that movie. It's hard to relate to, you know, sword slinging Space Ninja, right? But if he starts off as lowly moisture farmer, and we see him become Space Ninja, that's a much better story. We could relate to that. Oftentimes, okay, after meeting with the mentor, we have crossing the threshold. That could be your first day at college. That could very easily be anything, you know, your first day on the job. You can look at you if you want to apply it to your life. For Luke, it would be like, you know, meeting with Han Solo and when they escape from Tatooine. That's the crossing the threshold, sometimes called entering the special world. It'll be referred to as that sometimes. Again, for our hero to do what they need to do, they have to be tested. They have to meet allies and they have to meet enemies. Oftentimes, those that appear to be allies in the beginning turn out to be enemies in the end, and vice versa. The Hobbit is a good example of that, or Lord of the Rings, rather. When they first meet Aragorn, you know, they're not really sure of him. He looks kind of rough, kind of scary looking, but he feels right. So be looking for tests and be looking for allies who are some of Coraline's allies. Oftentimes, after they've been tested a certain amount of times, the hero must do what is called the approach to the cave. Now, Lucas took this in such a literal way that he literally had Luke go into a cave and fight, you know, himself, so to speak. Yoda says the only thing you have to fear is what you take, right? Sometimes it's an internal thing, sometimes it's a physical thing. More often than not, it's more of an internal struggle. Again, the hero may not think that they are capable of doing what needs to be done. They may question themselves. By approaching the cave and going into the cave, they emerge on the other side much more confident, much more aware of their own abilities. Next, we have the ordeal. Now, this seems to be like the highlight of things most of the time. This is the big battle. This is the hero facing their arch enemy. After the hero, most of the time, defeats the arch enemy, we have what is called the road back. The road back is how the hero assimilates their newfound knowledge into their old life. So some of you may have come from a small town to go to school here. After you graduate, you may return to that hometown, that small town. Now, you're going to be a little different than when you left. Do we have Hobbit fans? Okay. I like the book. I don't know what they did with the movie. It sure wasn't Lord of the Rings. But you know, when Frodo returns, all the other hobbits are kind of, Bilbo. When Bilbo returns, all the other hobbits are like, he's weird. He ran off with the dwarves and tells lies about dragons, and things like that. So it's hard for our hero to reassimilate back into the real world. Movies often skip that part. It's better to end on a high note with the hero defeating the bad guy. Oftentimes, though, even though we have seen the hero defeat the bad guy, we have what is called the resurrection. Horror movies do this all the time, right? The axe murderer has been hopefully slain, but at that last minute, here he comes again. One more stab, right? One more grab. Friday the 13th. You guys are probably a little young for that movie. It's a great movie, and when you watch it, you realize that like Johnny Depp's in it, Kevin Bacon's in it. All of these people who grew up to be really big movie stars are in it. It's like their first or second movie, which is crazy. But that movie does a good job at that, right? Little girl's in the boat. She's escaped, and here comes the little boy out of the water. Jason pulls her back into the water. Michael Myers. How many times do they have to kill that guy? Right? Every time, every single movie, they end up killing him and he comes back. So oftentimes the resurrection is that jump scare at the end of the movie. And then finally we have returning with the elixir, which again kind of plays into the road back. How does the hero incorporate their newfound knowledge into their lives? Okay. Coraline does that really well. If you think about what happens at the end of this movie, because she knows that evil is real now, but she also knows she's strong enough to overcome that evil. All right, so as we watch Coraline here after break, I want you to take some notes on this piece of paper. If you don't have a pencil, that's okay. I have lots of them. Don't have to write me a book. Okay? Don't write down everything. But like when you think it's the call to adventure, write that down. What's the call to adventure? Maybe it's when YB gives her the doll. Maybe it's when she notices the door for the first time. Okay. There are not a lot of right or wrong answers. I'm not going to ding you unless you're just completely way off. Okay. If you talk about a character that's not in the movie, I think so-and-so is the mentor. Well, that character's not in the movie. Okay. Did we watch the same movie? Then I might ding you a few points. But this is more of a participation thing and more of a, I want your interpretation of it. This is going to help me. Yes?
I just wondered, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but couldn't the call to action have been like, didn't they move to a new house and they were exploring it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, she's bored, right? And so yeah, absolutely. And like I said, this is more a way for me to get to know you a little bit. Okay? Get to see what you pick up on, what you notice. But you don't have to write me a book. You can just make simple notes. Now, in the module, story composition discussion, there is a quiz, which for some reason, I need to load that quiz. I'll do that while we're watching. Sorry about that. That's the nice thing about Canvas. If I notice mistakes, I can fix them relatively easily. But there'll be a quiz, and that's the only way that I can list it so that you guys have a place to put this in writing for me. Because I don't want to read your handwriting, no offense, but most of you have handwriting that's about as bad as mine. So I'm going to have you type it. Now, we will begin next week's class with a discussion of this. So bring this piece of paper with you so that you have something to refer back to and you can add to the discussion. And when I say discussion, I really want you guys' opinions. So we'll be like, all right, what was the ordinary world? And I'll call on 2 or 3 people. So on. Does that make sense? Okay, awesome. All right, Looney Tunes time.
Why isn't there a step before the call to adventure?
It generally is just the ordinary world.
That's just what they call it?
Yeah, yeah. They introduce the hero in their everyday life, and then the call to adventure is the first step.
Usually there's a lot of foreshadowing before.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, again, I want you to bear in mind, wow, that is really loud. I want you to bear in mind that these do not have to come in the order in which they're listed here. Oftentimes they will flip them Oftentimes they will repeat steps over and over and over again. If you watch the Star Wars movies, they do it. Every movie follows this, and then if you look at it as a whole, as the trilogy, there's this overarching story that does the same thing. So this is a loose framework. This is by no means definitive. There are other ways of formatting a story as well. Make sure I got the right remote. Yes, cool. All right, so this is the Looney Tunes Guide to Fairy Tales. And they are going to do the 5 steps of the hero's journey. I have seen all the way up to like 18 steps of the hero's journey before. So there's a lot of different interpretations of this. I like 12, it's nice and easy. And it makes me think of, like the 12 steps. So, if we're ready, we're going to watch this.
Upon a time, long, long ago.
Fairy tales. These are the stories that have been told for generations all over the world.
Come on, wake up, you lazy good for nothing.
Whether you're in ancient China or an enchanted forest,
Hello, nature. I love you.
they all have a few things in common.
This looks like a job for the Masked Avenger. But since he ain't around, I guess I'll have to take care of it myself.
And thanks to a scholarly gent named Joseph Campbell, now you can learn the key ingredients for making a classic fairy tale.
Whoa! Whoa! Help! Help the wall! Whoa! What a joke! What a joy!
So join me as we take a look at the Looney Tunes Guide to Fairy Tales to see how a classic fairy tale is made. The Looney Tunes Guide to Fairy Tales, with 5 easy steps to an enchanted story. Today, we will see how these 5 steps work together to make a classic fairy tale, as we follow along with the story, Goldilocks and the 3 Bears.